Good evening. Drug dealers have used violence and intimidation throughout history the world over. But now big city gangs here appear to have found a particularly grotesque way to reduce the risk of getting caught. In essence, they are grooming vulnerable young children to move the drugs around the country for them. And as this trend spreads, so does the violence and the intimidation that comes with it. Our national editor, Allegra Stratton, first revealed the practice more than a year ago, but she has now discovered it has grown since then. Most UK police forces contacted by the survey she's been shown reported a rise in many acts of violence, including murders, rapes, stabbings and severed hands.
Please! Please! Where you are!
Dawn in Great Yarmouth. We're with Norfolk Police as they raid this house for drugs.
Please! Take your hands where we can see them!
They have intelligence dealers from out of town are selling drugs from this flat. It's known as a county line.
There's drug paraphernalia around the address, so you are definitely going to be searched under the Misuse of Drugs Act.
Gangs systematically targeting, grooming and then moving vulnerable children around the country to sell crack cocaine and heroin.
Can you sit up for us, please?
Lee, where are you from?
Okay.
Taking through to the lounge or something.
They're exporting drugs, but extreme levels of violence too.
Yeah, you do not have to say anything that may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioning something which you later on in court.
Gangs take over the homes of local vulnerable people, addicts, the mentally ill. Next, they install children from Britain's big cities and the drug dealing begins.
We'll continue with the search and then we'll go from there.
What he's told us is he's originally from Wales, via Kent, and now he finds himself in Great Yarmouth, and he's only been here for a short period of time, and he can't really give us an explanation.
So what would you say is county lines in one sentence?
Well, county lines for me really is a business model that's based on exploiting people.
They didn't find children in Great Yarmouth today, but last year they found 20 in their drugs raids, one as young as 11. And it's not just Norfolk Police. Of the UK's 45 police forces surveyed by the Labour MP Anne Coffey, 32 reported significant increases in violence linked to county lines. Suffolk Police have seen more knives, bats, hammers and even the use of boiling water. Gloucestershire Police reported a 16-year-old drug dealer wearing a stolen local school uniform. In Humberside, a man's hand was severed by a machete and both his legs broken. And in Ayrshire, there was a violent feud between rival gangs.
Behind where we live, that's where we used to stash all the main guns and all the drugs.
For years, former gang member Matthew Norford groomed vulnerable children to sell drugs.
I would, bring them under my wing, manipulate them, tell them of all the good life they're going to get, the glory, let them be seen with me, the reputation's going to go up. Buy them a few trainers, look for the vulnerabilities that they haven't got parents or they've got nothing or they just want to be accepted, and then I'll get them with me. After 2 weeks they're up there selling drugs and they'll be up there until the whole parcel's gone and I've got my money.
Since jail he's reformed. Today he works to keep children out of the kind of gangs he used to run. And there's been a step change from the authorities. The National Crime Agency has made this type of drug dealing a top priority.
The gangs from the cities are moving out where there are already organised criminal gangs operating. The way they establish themselves is by using more extreme levels of violence to intimidate other gangs and to push their competition out of the way.
I spoke to one mother whose son is still in a gang. Groomed from the age of 13, he would go missing for weeks at a time as he ferried drugs around the country. How much violence has your son seen?
Unfortunately, he has been stabbed twice, and on one occasion I nearly lost him.
Why did they stab him, do you think?
I think it's part of the gang thing. I feel like he wanted to walk away, so that was more like torture, whereas the second time was more like intention to kill him.
Even Anne Coffey, who conducted the survey, was surprised by its findings.
The most shocking thing I took from it was actually the level of violence and intimidation, the beatings, the stabbings, the coercion of young people and vulnerable old people to supply drugs for profit.
Go! Go, go, go!
Over the last 2 years, the police have scrambled to crack down.
Open your door! Open your door!
But this escalation in extreme violence, spreading to new parts of the United Kingdom, suggests the fight will be even harder than first thought.
And Allegra is here now. Well, as you say there, this is a growing problem. How equipped do you think the police forces really are to deal with it?
I've been quite impressed over the months we've been out with. You saw just then Norfolk, but before Essex, we've actually been out with them twice. They absolutely get that they have a massive problem on their hands, and as you've seen in Anne Coffey's survey, huge amounts of violence. So they get it, which is different from when we first reported on this, when we were ringing some police forces and they were frankly in denial. They said they didn't have an issue, and we knew for a fact they did have an issue. So I think they do get it. The problem for them is that it is unique policy work. It's not just crime, it's not just drugs, it's not just those things in silos. It's the mixture of crime, drugs and vulnerability and exploitation that is incredibly challenging for them.
Well, you know, the terrible evidence from that poor mother there who clearly doesn't know what to do about her son, and it's sort of an awful aspect of it. I mean, it's kind of like modern slavery again, isn't it? Sort of targeting people and then sort of capturing them. What do they do about that?
Right, so it is exactly like that, and they are trying to use that modern slavery legislation. There was a conviction in December, and they're very hopeful it will be a landmark, well, it is a landmark case. They're very hopeful that soon there will be sentencing, and the important thing about that is that the sentencing will put those gang leaders away for longer than if they had gone down for straightforward drug dealing. That's very important, because what the police think is necessary is that they are convicted for something that gives them a stigma. At the moment, being convicted for dealing in drugs isn't a problem for them, but if they go into prison for exploiting children, that will be a problem.
OK, Rebecca, thank you very much indeed.